Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we delve into a remarkable tale of resilience, unexpected kindness, and the quiet strength found in the most isolated corners of the wilderness. The story begins along the frozen banks of a vast, untamed river, where icy winds cut through the air and snowflakes drifted silently down from a steel-gray sky. The river, swollen with winter melt and choked with drifting ice, formed a natural barrier between safety and the unknown. On one side lay the sparse traces of civilization, on the other, endless forest, stretching into a world few dared to enter. It was here that a young woman stood alone, her coat too thin to ward off the bone-deep chill, her eyes scanning the horizon with uncertainty. The setting itself was striking, towering pines dusted with snow, their branches creaking under the weight of ice, and a landscape that seemed to hold its breath. The cabin of the lone trapper stood far upriver, tucked into a clearing where smoke rose steadily from a stone chimney. Its hand-hewn logs bore the mark of decades of harsh seasons, weathered but strong. The riverbank's frozen edges glittered under a pale afternoon sun, but there was no warmth in the air. Each gust of wind carried the scent of pine and frost, wrapping the entire scene in a raw, unfiltered beauty that spoke to the strength of those who survived here. Inside the cabin, the interior was simple yet functional, designed for survival rather than luxury. A heavy wood stove dominated the main room, its iron belly glowing faintly, radiating a comforting heat. Rough-hewn shelves lined the walls, stacked with jars of preserved berries, strips of dried meat, and tools that bore the marks of years of use. A narrow cot covered in thick furs offered a place to rest, while a sturdy table in the corner held maps, a lantern, and the remnants of a hand-stitched fishing net. The air smelled faintly of wood smoke and cedar, a stark contrast to the biting cold outside. When it came to performance in such a landscape, the trapper's way of life was built on precision, endurance, and resourcefulness. His knowledge of the land was second nature. He could read the snow for signs of movement, hear danger in the distant crack of ice, and navigate miles of wilderness without leaving a trace. Every piece of equipment in the cabin served a purpose, from the hand-forged traps to the snowshoes leaning against the wall. His movements were deliberate and efficient, each one shaped by years of survival in a world where mistakes could mean disaster. The young woman, unfamiliar with such an unforgiving environment, quickly came to understand that survival here was as much about mental resolve as physical skill. Safety in the wild was never guaranteed, but the trapper's methods created a protective barrier against the elements and predators alike. The cabin's thick log walls and well-insulated roof held back the freezing wind. The river, though treacherous, also served as a natural defense, its icy waters discouraging unwanted visitors. Inside, the wood stove's steady heat kept frostbite at bay, while the carefully stored food ensured sustenance during the long months when hunting became scarce. Beyond the physical safeguards, there was also a quiet vigilance and awareness of the environment, a constant listening for changes in the wind or the distant snap of a twig. For the woman, this attention to detail became a lifeline. What set this story apart was the unique bond that grew between two people from vastly different worlds. The trapper, a man accustomed to solitude, extended his hand not out of obligation, but out of an unspoken understanding of what it meant to face the wilderness alone. His world was harsh, but it was also honest. Every day demanded effort, and every effort brought results. For the woman, this was a revelation. She began to see beauty in the silence, in the rhythm of the snow falling against the window, in the way the river changed under the shifting light. The cabin became more than shelter, it became a place of learning, a place where she discovered her own capacity for resilience. If one were to consider the value of such an existence in today's world, the price would not be measured in currency, but in courage, adaptability, and a willingness to let go of the unnecessary. The tools, the knowledge, and the security provided by the trapper's life would be priceless to anyone forced to confront nature without preparation. In a more literal sense, the cost of such isolation would involve the sacrifice of convenience, the abandonment of urban comforts, and the acceptance of complete self-reliance. It was not a life for the faint-hearted, but for those willing to embrace it. The rewards were immeasurable: freedom, peace, and a connection to the land that could never be replicated in a city. In conclusion, the story of the woman abandoned at the riverbank and the lone trapper who offered his hand is one of unexpected salvation. It reminds us that sometimes survival is not just about shelter and warmth, but about trust, shared strength, and the courage to step into the unknown. The wilderness can be unforgiving, but it can also be a place of profound transformation. In the heart of the cold, where the river runs deep and the forest stretches without end, two lives intersected, and neither would be the same again. This tale leaves us with a truth worth holding on to. Even in the harshest winters, there can be moments of warmth that change everything.